On the news, Supreme Court nullifies executive order empowering federal government to deduct from state funds. Over 30,000 Boko Haram ISWAP insurgents have surrendered, says Zulum. And CBN to stop forex sale to banks by December targets $200 billion non-oil exports. We're glad to have you join us to News Now. I am Folashade Ogurinde. A majority of the Supreme Court 7-member panel have nullified President Muhammadu Buhari's Executive Order 10. The order empowers the Accountant General of the Federation to deduct funds for the state legislature and the judiciary from the Federation allocations to the state. However, all the 36 states, through the Attorneys General, filed a suit on September 17, 2020, containing the constitutionality of the executive order. In a split decision on Friday, the majority of the court's 7-member panel agreed that the president exceeded his constitutional powers in issuing the Executive Order 10. Meanwhile, legal experts have thrown their weight behind the ruling of the Supreme Court. In an earlier interview with TV360 Nigeria, legal practitioner Liberus Oshoma explained that an executive order should not override the Constitution.
That is not how you enforce provisions of the Constitution. No matter how good an executive order is, it cannot take the place of constitutionality in a constitutional democracy. And so what should have happened ordinarily would be to spell out what should be done in the event that that order of the law is violated. It is the same law that empowers, that gives powers, that is the same law that should spell out what should happen in the event of violation. In one breath, the governors are arguing that you cannot give autonomy to the courts. But in another breath, they are saying that these courts should belong to the state high court, should belong to the federal government. The capital project for the state high court should be, the responsibility of those projects should be for the federal government. And also it's like blowing hot and cold from the same mouth. And so what the Supreme Court has said, the Supreme Court has identified the fact that these courts are state-owned, but that to enforce autonomy for this court, you do not need an executive order, but an amendment to the Constitution.
Governor Babagana Zulum of Borno State has disclosed that so far over 30,000 Boko Haram and Islamic State West Africa Province ISWAP terrorists have surrendered themselves to military authorities. He gave the figure shortly after he met with President Muhammadu Buhari at the State House on Thursday to apprise him of progress in the surrendering of Boko Haram terrorists. The governor explained that following these developments, the state is relatively peaceful as the security agencies have continued to take measures aimed at checking the activities of the insurgents in the northeast. The governor also expressed optimism that the insurgency in the region would soon be a thing of the past.
We have been witnessing gradual return of peace in Borno State, and I came to brief Mr. President on the ongoing massive defection of Boko Haram members. This time around, we have also started witnessing defection of ISWAP members. This is a welcome development, and under a closed door session, I've discussed a lot of issues on how the government of Borno State, as well as the federal government, will manage the ongoing surrender by the insurgents. We received nothing less than 30,000 from beginning to date. No, both Boko Haram. ISWAP, we have started receiving them in few numbers, but we have also, but Boko Haram, we have started receiving them in huge numbers. The way we are going, with the support of the federal government, with good management, Boko Haram will be over very soon.
And still on security, the Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, CISLAC, has urged the federal government and security agencies to build relationships with communities to effectively tackle insecurity. The executive director, Awal Rafsanjani, who was represented by board member Adishinoke, made a call at a focus group discussion on the barriers and bridges to security accountability in Nigeria, which held in Lagos. Oke said for 12 years, jihadist violence in Nigeria and the Lake Chad Basin have plunged the area into depths of humanitarian crisis. On his part, the project's manager, Defense and Security, CISLAC, Salahuddin Hashim, said Nigeria's military forces have unrelentingly waged war against the insurgents, but with no clear end in sight as insurgency groups are re-emerging, posing new threats and continued old terrors.
Inflows of foreign fighters into the country, and these aliens are not properly controlled, and the inability to control the alien has continued to threaten the security architecture of the system. And the reason why it is very important is that our borders are also becoming very porous. Yes, we have a belt of over 2,000 square kilometers that is not properly policed, but of course for where policing is going on within the borders, there seems to be a lot of commercialization that is going on by personnel, looking the other way around, allowing aliens to move in and out of the country at will. And of course, for the customs, I think it is important that we begin to tighten up the more. There seem to be some efforts coming up from the system and from the customs, but yes, they needed to also do more.
The security sector has been so shielded in a lot of secrecy, especially when it comes to the finances. Of course, I mean, there are certain things that may not be exposed to people, but the truth is that there are certain things that you also need to be made public to the people of what are the steps that you are taking. But critically is that, you know, when you are only concentrating, because when you talk about security, it's not only meant for the armed forces or the police, it's all of us.
In a show of humanitarian service, the Defense and Police Officers' Wives Association, DEPOWA, says it has trained and empowered families of soldiers killed in the counter-insurgency war. The widows and youths received trainings in hotel and catering management, fashion designing, computer studies, cosmetology and hairdressing. DEPOWA President Harry lamented that the involvement of the military in tackling security challenges had come at a high price, with the death of officers and soldiers who left behind families in most barracks. Former First Lady Miriam Abacha and the Chief of Army Staff Farouk Yahaya, who graced the graduation ceremony, lauded DEPOWA for holding the fort, while also urging the beneficiaries to make the most of the opportunity.
We cannot have it better. The graduates are lucky to be so trained. We have also seen what they have done. We have seen the fashion parade here. Some of the dresses they have sewn by themselves could sell anywhere, probably you can see. And now I know there are other skills and competencies and capacities that are embedded in them that they can deploy and do well.
Ladies that have trained, please, as you are being advised, continue with what you have, and God will bless what you have. I don't know how well you can be, or what you are doing can be, so that your children can learn from what you have. You can have your own schools also. You can establish a small school in your place, apart from the money market and so on.
The graduates should keep hope alive. Everything we've given to them is for them to make profits, to train their children, so they should work hard. The lecture delivered by Smith had a lot to give to them in terms of business management. They should make sure that they put to practice. They are doing so well in their businesses, so we never leave them behind. We even go as far as trying to see if we can secure loans for them to ensure that they do well in their businesses.
And now to education. Governor Mai Mala Buni of Yobe State has unveiled his education policy in the state while revealing projects already executed by his administration. Buni also revealed that the state needs over 25 billion naira to revitalize education in the state. He said the fund would help the state eliminate the problem of out-of-school children, maintain the higher standard of enrollment and attendance, as well as retention, with special attention to girls' education. Our correspondent, Simi Saladigun, has the details in this report.
After more than a decade of insurgency, the education sector in many states in the northeastern part of the country have come under duress. To this end, the Yobe State Governor, Mai Mala Buni, says over 25 billion naira is needed to revitalize education in the state. He made the appeal at the Yobe State Education Development fundraising held in Abuja on Thursday. He said the fund will be used to develop and maintain a high standard of education as well as institutional arrangements in the basic and secondary education subsector.
We decided to approach our good selves, our potential benefactors, through this education fundraising event to seek your support in cash or in kind of endowment seed fund and to an estimated value of 25 billion naira. This would go a long way to help us satisfactorily sustain the delivery of the work we have set out to achieve as follows: elimination of the problem of out-of-school children, maintain the highest standard of enrollment, attendance, and retention with special attention to girls' education.
Prominent personalities in the country, such as governors, members of the National Assembly, members of the traditional ruling class, as well as other notable guests, were in attendance. The chief launcher and chairman of Mangal Group, Dahiru Barao Mangal, donated a total sum of 1.3 billion naira to the fund.
I want to make the following donation. Family and friend of Alhaji Dahiru Mangal, 500 million. Myself, Alhaji Dahiru Mangal, 500 million. And Alhaji Awal Lawal, Sarkin Sudan of Gombe, 300 million naira. Total is 1.3 billion naira.
On his part, the Senate President, Ahmed Lawan, described the fundraising as a national call. He, however, said the initial investment of 25 billion naira is a drop in the bucket when compared to the amount of work needed to be done.
If there is one single sector that you can use to change the world, it's education. And that is what Nelson Mandela said when he said education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world.
Also, the President of the Senate commended the Yobe State Governor for giving priority attention to education and efforts toward enhancing the quality of education in the state. Simisola Digun, TV360 News.
The head of Inspectorate and Quality Control of the Lagos State Building Control Agency, LAPSCA, Olasheun Randall, is giving a testimony at the ongoing coroner's inquest into the collapse of a 21-story building on Gerald Road in Ikoyi, which claimed the lives of 45 people. Taking the witness stand at the Ikeja High Court in Lagos, Randall said the construction of a 3 high-rise building began before provisional approval was granted. While answering questions from Ola Adeosun, counsel to Prowess Engineering, the initial structural engineer to the Ikoyi building, Randall explained that LAPSCA officials had visited the site thrice during construction but were denied entry by the developer. She added that in late June 2019, the agency received certification of permits from its sister agency, the Lagos State Fiscal Planning Permit Authority, authorizing construction of the building. Further hearing on the inquest has been adjourned till February 17. Meanwhile, the counsel to Prowess Engineering, Ola Adeosun, while stating that relevant facts of the building collapse had been revealed, expressed satisfaction at the conduct of the inquest.
It's been positive. At least certain facts have started emerging as to things leading to the collapse of that building. The witness has tried telling the court things that she doesn't know about and the ones she knows about. I mean, so far so good. Hopefully professional bodies, witnesses of professional bodies will come around to tell the court their observations as to compliance with building regulations and codes.
The Shangisha Landlords Association has faulted the Lagos State government for reneging on its planned meeting to end the land tussle between the government and Shangisha landlords. Addressing newsmen after a failed meeting with the government, lawyer to the judgment creditors, Deji Fashisi, bemoaned the government's insensitivity to the plight of residents by cancelling the scheduled meeting indefinitely without prior notice. He further called on the Babajide Sanwo-Olu-led administration to uphold the Supreme Court's judgment on the allocation of 549 plots of land to the landlords.
The governor expressed optimism that the issues will be resolved and that the judgment of the court would be complied with fully. the 549 plots, which was the subject of the judgment of the court, would be given to the judgment creditors. We are aware that the Lagos State government has gone to the Supreme Court to file to seek some relief at the Supreme Court, and of course this is showing, as far as Financial Allowance Association are concerned, that it is either the government are not serious, or what they have done all the while is to keep us at bay so that they can do what they want to do. This is quite disappointing. For us, it is dishonorable that the government would attempt to renege on what they have told the entire world, on the attempt to settle this issue amicably. We find it very distasteful. We think it's also disrespectful, because we don't think it is right for us to come here today and leave everything we're supposed to do, and we're not informed that the meeting would be cancelled, to the extent that they are saying it is cancelled indefinitely.
Well, we'll take a break here, but still to come, death toll rises in suspected jihadist ambush in Benin Republic. Details of the story and more right after this break. Welcome back. Now here is a recap of some of our top stories tonight. A majority of the Supreme Court 7-member panel have nullified President Muhammadu Buhari's Executive Order 10. President Buhari on May 22 signed the order granting financial autonomy to the legislature and the judiciary in the 36 states of the Federation. We also told you that Governor Babagana Zulum of Borno State has disclosed that so far over 30,000 Boko Haram and Islamic State West Africa Province ISWAP terrorists have surrendered themselves to military authorities. The governor explained that following this development, the state is relatively peaceful as security agencies have continued to take measures aimed at checking the activities of the insurgents in the northeast of the country. But in case you missed any of our news bulletin or for more updates, do log on to our website on www.tv360nigeria.com. You can also follow us on our social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube and Google Plus at TV360 Nigeria. On Facebook, we are TV360 Online. Nigeria on Thursday continued on a low count of COVID-19 cases as the NCDC recorded 48 infections across the country, bringing the total number of confirmed cases to 253,923. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, said the infections were logged in 9 states and the Federal Capital Territory, FCT. Lagos topped the chart with 15 cases, followed by Cross River and FCT with 12 and 8 cases respectively. According to the data by the NCDC, no fatality was recorded, leaving the total deaths at 3,139. The World Health Organization's Regional Director for Africa, Mashidiso Moeti, says Africa is transitioning out of the pandemic phase of the COVID-19 outbreak and moving towards a situation where it will be managing the virus over the long term. Moeti reviewed this in a media briefing on Thursday, adding that the African continent has gotten smarter, faster and better at responding to each new surge in cases of COVID-19 over the past 2 years. Moeti's optimism contrasts sharply with the warnings from WHO Director General Tedros Ghebreyesus, who has said that the pandemic is not over and that it is premature for countries to think that the end might be imminent.
There is light at the end of the tunnel. As long as we remain vigilant and we act intensively, particularly on vaccination, the continent is on track for controlling the pandemic. The World Bank estimates that the pandemic has pushed up to 40 million people in Africa into poverty. It's been an extremely difficult 2 years, but against all odds, Africa is weathering this terrible storm. The continent's long history and experience with large outbreaks, along with an accumulation of learnings and expertise since the onset of COVID-19, has seen the response become more effective with each new wave. I believe that we are transitioning from the pandemic phase, and we will now need to manage the presence of this virus in the long term.
We'll take a pause here and return with more stories in business. To stay with us. Welcome back. Well, Mary Kano is on standby to bring us the latest in business. Over to you, Mary.
Well, thank you, Folashade. Welcome to Business News. The Central Bank of Nigeria has revealed that it will stop the sale of foreign exchange to banks by the end of the year. CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele made a comment at a briefing during the launch of the bank's new Forex repatriation scheme held after the Bankers Committee meeting on Thursday in Abuja. According to Emefiele, the decision is in line with the CBN's new commitment to boost the country's foreign reserves through proceeds from non-oil exports, adding that the banks must begin to source their Forex from export proceeds. The Nigerian Association of Road Transport Owners has decried government's failure to increase the freight rate for transporting petrol. The national president of the association, Yusuf Othman, lamented that the payments are received by transporters in arrears, usually 3 to 5 months after the products are delivered. Othman further said that many PMS transporters have stopped transporting the commodity, while more will soon pack their trucks if the government remains adamant in refusing to increase the freight rate for transporting petrol.
Condition of the roads, many of which are in precarious condition. Although we commend the federal government for the NNPC tax credit intervention of 621 billion for the repair of 21 roads, they should speed up with the awards of the contracts and exercise extreme care in the supervision, monitoring, and payment so as to ensure value for money in contract execution. This becomes imperative to avoid substandard or poor work execution. From these facts I just gave you, it should be clear that the current freight rate payable is not only inadequate but unsustainable for our continued operation. There is no doubt that the transporters will find it difficult to operate under this condition. For the records, I should emphasize the positive contribution of trucks to the efficient distribution of petroleum products across the country, despite the occasional problems associated with them. It is a record that over 98% of petroleum products are transported by road today. The pipelines have not been operational for years, while the railways, despite rehabilitation, are yet to commence. The current PMF scarcity is partly caused by lack of funds to run the trucks profitably. Many transporters have decided to park their trucks, and I am sure that many more will park theirs in due course. If something drastic about increasing the freight rate is not promptly done.
We'll take a break now and return with a review of the stock market. Just stay with us. A rise in gains recorded during the week. The Nigerian stock market has left investors with little or no gains for the week as the market remained volatile. This week's trading had 2 days of gains and 3 days of losses, leaving the bear in charge of a second trading week in the month of February. At the close of trading, investors lost about 45 billion naira as the all-share index plunged to 0.18%. Now hit the most by today's low turn of events, the sea of red continued with Farm Deco and NEM topping the chart part of equities with the most losses. Now, despite the losses, today's data shows improvements in volume, value and deals. Similarly, 19 equities made gains as our top flyers for today are Guinness and NCR leading the gainers counter. Let's now turn our attention to some selected global stocks. Now, the UK, US and Asian stocks, the Dow Jones and the Nikkei are currently trading in the greens at 0.42% and 0.42% respectively, while FTSE is currently trading down at 0.13% on the news that inflation is about to hit the UK and the possibility of a much more aggressive Federal Reserve. Well, that's the latest stock market update. Back to Folashade.
Well, many thanks, Mary, for that update. Now, the foreign scene. The government of Benin Republic says the number of people killed during 3 bomb blasts in the national park this week has risen to 9. The W National Park straddles the borders of Benin, Burkina Faso and Niger, an area under threat from the spread of Islamist militants. A South African wildlife charity that manages the park said on Wednesday that 6 people had been killed when patrol vehicles hit the explosive devices. France has opened an investigation as a French national was among the dead. No group has however said it was behind the violence. Well, up next is Entertainment Report on News Now.
Social media content creators Ikorodu Boys have joined the cast of Kunle Afolayan's new Netflix collaboration. The filmmaker unveiled the teenage social media stars through an Instagram post shared on his official handle. The comic stars will be joining a stellar cast including Hakeem K. Kazim, Shola Shobowale, Bimbo Ademoye, Kunle Remi, Taiwo Hassan, amongst others. The yet-to-be-titled production will be Afolayan's 3rd Netflix commission project and first for the year after the release of Swallow and A Naija Christmas. Former Big Brother Naija Season 4 housemate Omashola has shared a photo of his newborn son for the first time. Omashola and his fiancée welcomed their first child together in January 2022, but only recently announced that they were expecting a baby. According to him, the biggest highlight of 2021 was the proposal. Omashola disclosed this on his Instagram page on Friday, where he shared the photo and captioned it with a cute note. And that's all there is on the entertainment segment of News Now.
Away from entertainment and out to sports, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has said that the Nigeria University Games NUGA was proof that every part of the country is valuable. The Vice President made this known when he received the Games Touch of Unity at the Presidential Villa in Abuja ahead of the commencement of the 2022 tournament. Osinbajo also encouraged athletes who will be competing and representing their respective universities to do so proudly.
For years, the Nigeria University Games Association has not only provided a space that allows us to see the value that every part of the country has to offer, but it has also provided a platform for the discovery and honing of individual sporting talent, many of whom have gone on to represent Nigeria successfully on the world stage. We encourage the athletes who will be competing this, and I hope that the athletes who will be competing this year will not only represent their respective universities proudly and in the spirit of true sportsmanship, but they will also realize that their achievements there are a prelude to bigger achievements and greater laurels for themselves and for Nigeria. As an administration, we are committed to ensuring that you receive all support you need at every stage of your exceedingly promising careers.
The 2022 Access Bank Lagos City Marathon will take place tomorrow with fanfare and glamour after it was restricted to few runners last year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Organizers of the race have confirmed that the Silver Label race will be returning to full capacity, which includes the 10-kilometer race. An international press conference held today. Bukola Olopade, who is the chairman of the Nilayo Sports Management, disclosed to journalists that the race is not just for the professional runners, but also for those running for a cause.
We have 5 different courses running tomorrow, and I'm so excited. People are running for sickle cell, people are running for mental health, but the one that gladdens my heart the most is that we have people running for autism. That means a lot to me because my son is autistic, and there is little or no knowledge of what autism actually is in this country. Therefore, the autism movement in Nigeria is doing so well to get people to run for autism. That, for me, is the climax of this year's marathon.
The major thing is that we are returning to the full scale of the marathon. COVID has deprived us of the full marathon over the last 2 years or so, but this time we're going back to the 10K marathon and the 42K full marathon. And the field is very full of the elite runners, so we expect a record time again this year. Apart from that, entertainment and sports are synonymous globally, and that's been the trend of the marathon for the first 6 editions.
Axis Bank Lagos Marathon is one of 11 World Athletics label races. There are about 6 marathons within those 11, and this is the richest in terms of prize money. And of course, that's at the end of 2 years of pandemic. And this is one of the very, very few races that has actually been held every year. So the organizers, the sponsors, have had a lot of faith in this race, and it's become one of the best.
And that's the size of our news bulletin. Many thanks for watching. I am Folashade Ogurinde. Bye for now.